Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said over the weekend that Israel would take whatever action is necessary to diminish the threat posed by Hezbollah. In a tit-for-tat, the deputy leader of the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group Hezbollah has warned that the conflict was entering a new stage. This after a weekend full of continuous rocket and missile barrages from both sides. These threats have added to international alarm that intensifying violence between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon has put the region on the brink of a catastrophe. On Crux Decode, will there now be an all-out war between Israel and Lebanon? When they last fought back in 2006, Israel withdrew after what was seen as a half-finished job against Hezbollah. Will Israel be able to finish the job this time? And more importantly, is Hezbollah much more of a fighting force today than it was 20 years ago? And will it be able to thwart Israel's military designs? Hezbollah launched more than 100 rockets, missiles and drones at Israeli territory over the weekend. This was a large-scale response to Israeli aggression last week. Just this past few days have seen a wave of deadly attacks against Hezbollah operatives in Lebanon, and this included exploding pagers and walkie-talkies along with airstrikes against senior commanders. In a brief statement put out by his office, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said, "If Hezbollah did not understand the message, then I promise you that it will be forced to understand the message." The crux of the new aggression, according to him, was Israel being determined to return those citizens who were displaced by the cross-border violence because of Hezbollah back to their homes in northern Israel. The Israeli military's chief of staff, Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, was more specific. He said Israel's strikes will intensify in a statement that condemned Hezbollah's overnight raids. Hezbollah has said its assault against Israel, which set off air raid sirens in dozens of towns in the north, had targeted Israeli military bases. The biggest one was at a location near Haifa, which is one of the biggest ports in Israel, right on the coast. The Israeli military said most of the missiles were intercepted by its air defense systems, but a town just north of Haifa suffered a direct hit, and officials tightened restrictions in public areas, public gatherings, like in the Golan Heights and also in Galilee. The barrages were seemingly the most distant rocket strikes into Israeli territory since Hezbollah started firing at Israel a little under a year ago. Hezbollah started attacking Israel after Hamas launched the deadly October 7th terror strike. These retaliatory strikes also seem to be carefully calibrated. It was a show of force near one of Israel's biggest cities, Haifa, but it was also one that avoided the heart of the country, which could have drawn a much harsher response from Israel. But prior to that, Israel had launched multiple airstrikes across southern Lebanon and in particular in the capital Beirut. Hezbollah confirmed the death of a top commander, Ibrahim Akil, who was wanted by the United States for his role in two bombing attacks that happened way back in 1983. In those two attacks, more than 300 people died. The attacks happened at the US Embassy in Beirut and also the US Marine Corps barracks. Hezbollah's deputy leader, Naim Qassem, has said that what happened Saturday night is just the beginning. He was referring to the barrage of rockets, missiles and drones that Hezbollah launched into Israel. He warned that conflict with Israel had entered a new stage. Hezbollah will fight Israel from where they expect and from where they do not expect. The Israeli strike on Friday, which the military said had killed several senior Hezbollah commanders, along with the top leader, Commander Akil, came at the end of what had already been a chaotic week in Lebanon. Wireless devices exploded across the country on Tuesday and Wednesday, killing dozens of people and maiming thousands of others. Many of them happened to be Hezbollah cadre or their overground workers. Even before Hezbollah launched more than 100 rockets, cruise missiles and drones towards northern Israel on Sunday, people who lived in that area were afraid that they were being targeted. Most of the projectiles launched overnight were intercepted by Israel's air defenses, but at least one of them struck a residential neighborhood in the town of Kiryat Bialik early Sunday morning. It set cars on fire, it badly damaged about half a dozen houses, and nearby window panes were shattered. Judging by the comments of senior Israeli officials, the aims and goals of this war, which started off as one that would avenge the Hamas attacks, now seem to have shifted. From eradicating Hamas in the Gaza Strip to stopping Hezbollah's attacks across the northern border and allowing 60,000 displaced Israelis to return, that seems to be the new focus right now. And that is why there is criticism against Netanyahu's government, including from the United States, that this is a classic case of shifting of the goalposts. But Israel is pressing on unflinched. On Friday evening, Yoav Gallant, Israel's defense minister, vowed that the recent military actions, which are all part of a new phase of the war that he announced on Wednesday, would continue until those displaced Israelis can go back home. Israeli leaders have been signaling this shift in philosophy for months now. In late June, Netanyahu and Israel's President Isaac Herzog toured the northern border of Israel with Lebanon. They also met with military commanders who were stationed there. At around the same time, Yoav Gallant concluded a trip to Washington where he reportedly told Biden administration officials that Israel was determined to establish security in the north and in the south, and in order to do that, it was willing to change the reality on the ground. The last time Israel went into southern Lebanon was in 2006. In July of that year, Israel engaged in a month-long conflict with Hezbollah, triggered by a cross-border raid which had resulted in the abduction of 2 Israeli soldiers. Israel launched extensive airstrikes and also a ground invasion with the aim of weakening Hezbollah's military capabilities. That war ended with a UN-brokered ceasefire on the 14th of August 2006. While Israel achieved some of its military objectives, Hezbollah claimed victory for its resilience. It is at the end of that war that Hezbollah emerged as a significant regional force despite suffering heavy casualties. The question now is, has Hezbollah become a bigger and perhaps more resilient fighting force capable of thwarting Israel's military designs? From the barrage of over 100 rockets and drones that were fired over the weekend, it appears to be the case that Hezbollah is much stronger today than it was during the 2006 war. In the months since the start of this current war between Hamas and Israel, the daily exchange of fire between Israel and Hezbollah has also intensified. The United States has continuously stressed that a wider war that could draw in Iran threatens to further destabilize the region. Right now, though, its allies in Tel Aviv are paying scant attention to the Biden administration.